Hello and welcome to using BI tools with MarkLogic from MarkLogic University. In this episode, we'll talk about using Qlik with MarkLogic. To follow along with this tutorial, you'll need MarkLogic installed, access to Qlik, and some data to work with. In this video, you will learn the basics about accessing data from MarkLogic using Qlik. MarkLogic is great for doing data consolidation, bringing all sorts of data from a variety of silos and sources, and putting it all under one roof, organized and managed in a highly secure environment. It's only natural that I now want to access that data to help drive my business. Whether I'm an analyst or an executive, I want to be able to ask or answer questions about my data in different ways. BI tools are a common way for enterprises to analyze their data. With BI, such as Qlik, there are different ways of connecting based on your use cases or business needs. How you select is going to be driven by your current IT setup and your use cases. If you need the ability to run live queries against the database, such as what is my fiscal exposure right now, then ODBC will probably be the choice for you. The advantage of live is everything you see in your BI tool is up to date. On the other hand, your queries are hitting your production system and they are running at the speed of your database. If you decide that an ODBC connection is right for you, then you will need a SQL view over your MarkLogic data. One feature of MarkLogic that can help out is template-driven extraction, or TDE. It's very straightforward. First, identify the parts of your document data that you want to expose as SQL views. Next, write a template that specifies what that view looks like. A template is a document that declares how a view is to be populated. It defines a context, the root path, of all the documents that are involved in this view. Then, for each column in the view, it defines a column name, type, and a path to the data inside the document. With TDE, we are able to consolidate or manipulate data without changing the underlying documents. Instead, indexes will be generated to act as the basis of the ODBC calls and improving query performance. It also means that we can use one or more sources to generate multiple views. What if you want to get a huge amount of data, but it doesn't need to be live, such as annual sales results? Data extract is probably your best choice. This allows you to leverage features of MarkLogic and to programmatically batch and convert data, any data, to an optimized format. Using code like Java, you can certainly call SQL to get the data you want, but you don't need to. It could be a call to REST or some server-side code that extracts data from MarkLogic and saves it to one or more files. For the REST data connector, you write a front end using code that accepts parameters from the URL, pulls data from the database via a REST endpoint, generating a snapshot in real time, and then returns the data for analysis. The advantage of the REST data connector is that you are not restricted to using SQL. It actually allows you to leverage all of the powerful features of MarkLogic to determine what data you want and how you want it. You can learn more about MarkLogic at docs.marklogic.com. Further training on TDE and MarkLogic in general is available at marklogic.com/learn. Before we get into Qlik itself, let's look at what has been done on the MarkLogic side. First off, we have a database created and populated with data. This database is being leveraged by two different app servers, an HTTP server and an ODBC server. If I explore the database in the query console, we can see that we have close to 75,000 documents in the database. Each of these documents is a simulated patient record for a hospital visit. While there's a fair amount of data in each document, we are only going to leverage a handful of values for our demonstrations. This is the template that we are using to allow MarkLogic to create a SQL view for our documents. Notice the schema name is Healthcare. This is what the outside world will see as the SQL database, and the view name of Patients will be the table. This template has already been loaded into our schemas database. Back in the query console, I can run a basic SQL query and confirm that all of my data is available as expected. I've created a system DSN pointing to my ODBC server. Notice again that the database name lines up with the schema name. Here in Qlik, let's start by creating a new app. This first app will be called ODBC. To start, we'll add data from our database. So I'll select ODBC. For this connection, I'm going to use the system DSN that I had previously configured. I need to supply the appropriate credentials, and then I can click Create. To make life easy, we will select the entire patient's table and then add our data. Once the data is loaded, the dialog will say so and the timer will stop. For this first demo, I want to create a bar graph summarizing the charges for each facility type. Notice that Qlik is automatically adding up all of the charges for me. To see the values, I need to finalize the chart. To verify the results, I can compare what Qlik has calculated to a SQL call. Let's look at University Hospital. As you can see, according to Qlik, over $477 million were spent at University Hospital. Now let's compare that to a SQL call. Here is a SQL command that will add up the charges for University Hospital. Notice that the result here in the query console lines up with what Qlik calculated. Next, let's import a static file into Qlik. I have a REST extension written that will return the data in an XML. For the purposes of this demo, the extension is returning the same 4 columns as the ODBC view for all of the documents in our database. I have it saved so I can import it into Qlik. So we'll add a second app, this one to leverage that XML document. We'll name this app XML Data. Next, we need to set up a new dataset based on our XML. Since we have it saved, we can use the file browser on the left to select it. I'll put in the path to my downloads and select the XML file. Notice that the visit date entry is a full date and not just a month. This will be important in a moment. All of the elements are already selected for us, so I can go ahead and add the data. As before, once the data has loaded, the dialog box will say so and the timer will stop. For this part of the demo, we will first create a line graph depicting the average charge per month. Remember that the visit date is a full date, but that's okay. Qlik has realized that that element is a date and can parse that for me. Notice that month is an entry in the list for visit date. On the right, you can now see visit date listed as a dimension. Next, we want to add a measure, so click the Add button. We want the average charge, so don't just select charges. We want to expand the list and select average. While this graph looks dramatic, pay attention to the scale. Notice that this graph is not starting at 0. Let's dig into this a little bit more and add a count as a second dimension. Notice that there are a number of built-in functions available. We'll make use of count. And here's where it gets a little interesting. The number of charges dropped by over half between June and July. That is probably something worth exploring more and is the sort of insight that can be found when using BI tools. Last up, we will leverage REST. This particular REST extension returns a JSON snapshot of our dataset. We'll focus specifically on the general hospital facility by leveraging a parameter. For a third and final time, we will add a new app. Keeping with our pattern, I'll name this REST. Once again, we'll be adding data from files and other sources. There is a button specifically for REST right here. Now to enter the URL of our REST extension. We also need to specify how we will be authenticating. In this case, we'll use digest and supply some credentials. Finally, name this connection and it should be ready for use. Once the connection is loaded, we can select patient data on the left. Notice that only general hospital entries have been returned. Now we can click the Add Data button with all of our elements selected. And again, once the data has been loaded, the dialog will say so and the timer will stop. For this example, we'll use a pie chart. You can specify what type of representation you'd like using the Charts tab on the left. We'll use the quarter from the visit date to create the slices. This means that we'll add it as the dimension. To size the slices, we'll use the charges, which will therefore be used as the measure. With that, we have a functional chart leveraging data we obtained via REST. In this episode, you learned the basics about accessing data from MarkLogic using Qlik. To get MarkLogic, download it from developer.marklogic.com. Get more training by visiting marklogic.com/learn. Also, a complete selection of on-demand topics is available at mlu.marklogic.com/on-demand. Or download the MarkLogic mobile app available on both the Apple App Store and Google Play. And don't forget to show off what you've learned. Add MarkLogic as a skill on your LinkedIn profile today. Thank you for watching this MarkLogic University on-demand tutorial.